Greetings and welcome to The Thirsty Mage, the podcast that's gearing up to explore every nook and cranny of Hyrule all over again. I'm your host for this episode, Jordan Rudek, and this week we're taking a look back at a very special part of 2017, and possibly the very best game to release on the Wii U, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. With Tears of the Kingdom only weeks away at this point, it felt right to briefly return to its predecessor for a spot of reminiscing before diving into the sequel in earnest on May 12th. Joining me this evening is someone who spent approximately 10 hours of her Breath of the Wild playtime doing nothing but looking for Koroks. It's Paige Chamberlain.
I don't know where you've gotten that impression of me. I definitely didn't really go out of my way to hunt any Koroks unless they were within, where I could see them.
I played the same way, actually. I only went for the ones that were in vision, in my line of sight.
I don't know what my playtime is because I've had multiple switches, so you have to play a game a bunch before it kind of shows you your vague playtimes on games that don't have an internal clock. But I don't think it was that long. So.
Okay. My playtime was probably in the 40 to 60 range, something like that. Maybe higher, because I specifically made a point of not finishing the story or the game and fighting Ganon until I'd done all the shrines. So it did take me a while to find all of them, and I think some of the last ones, after I got over 110 or so on my own, I did resort to some guides and looking up a few of the locations, just because I was ready to move on to the next game. But did you kind of do something like that? Did you finish all the shrines, or what was your kind of way of going through the game?
I just sort of did what I wanted for a little bit, and then I had a bit where I think I just sort of generally explored a bit until I decided to progress the story, and then I pretty much just went for the story, but on my way to the new locations, and I'd check things out here and there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love just kind of finding the towers, like kind of marking them in the distance, and then just that was my goal for most evenings, most play sessions. I would just get to the next tower, open up a new section of the map, and then see what was around. Usually I would just look for shrines that were around, because that kind of became my go-to goal at the beginning of the game early on, when I realized, okay, there's a lot of these shrines. I do think that could be like a completion mechanic for me, is I want to find as many of these as I can, maybe do all of them. And I guess when the final number appeared, or when we realized how many there were going to be, I'm like, okay, that seems manageable. A lot more manageable than finding is it 700 Koroks, something like that, right?
900.
Yeah, well, it's just wild. I probably didn't get even a third of that, but I think that's the way you're kind of describing your playthrough. Is kind of I think one of the great things about the game is that you can play it kind of however you want, right? You can kind of mainline the story. I know speedrunners, have taken this game down in a matter of maybe minutes or tens of minutes or something.
Well, yeah, that's because once you finish the tutorial, you can go straight to Ganon and beat the game. Right. So
I mean, that was something that came up in one of the early presentations of the game too, right? Is that they kind of teased that as soon as you're done here, you can go fight Ganon right away. Not that many people are going to want to do that. Obviously, it'd be severely underpowered, but of course, those inclined to beating the game as fast as they can are licking their chops when they hear something.
I think that's what my husband went for, and then I think he obviously didn't do it, but he had a bunch of good weapons from the castle because that's the first place.
Yeah, it's right. If you're careful, you can get into the castle, pick up some loot, and then go out and have an easier time with the early part of the game, I guess.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those games where its tutorial section or area, the Great Plateau, is just so perfect at teaching you how to play the game. It really is one of the, and I know that this obviously got a lot of discussion and buzz when the game came out, but it is one of those very, very effective setups for the rest of the game, right? That you have this kind of microcosm of the world in the Great Plateau, and once you've kind of mastered that, the whole world opens up to you, and there's endless possibilities for where you can go. how are we feeling about the game? Like I know this is one of the best reviewed games ever. Still up there. I think it's around
Yeah.
96 or 97% on Metacritic. With some other Zeldas are up there too, obviously, like Ocarina of Time. How are you feeling about the game now that we're 6 years past its launch?
I like it. It's definitely, I think, my only real complaint is that I didn't care much for the divine beasts.
Hmm.
Like, you had your little story set up to them, but like, yeah, because we dissected the dungeons into like all these different shrines and stuff. Hopefully, the next one has something different to that. But it's definitely, yeah. Like finished it within like the year it came out. Honestly, I didn't do a lot of things in the game. There's like lots of enemies I didn't fight. Occasionally, I open it up and mess around. And then I did have a plan to go back to it now because to get ready for Tears of the Kingdom. But I'm generally not really a post game sort of completionist sort of person, so I was pretty much happy with um running around picking up the memories to get that tiny sliver more of an ending.
Yeah, I did that as well. I had to make sure I got all those memories before I finished the game. In addition to completing all the shrines, I think you and I are the same in that regard of not necessarily going back and like kind of completing a game to 100%. Like I'll do that sometimes if I want to get like a
But
platinum trophy,
if
but
it was important, it would have been before the credits.
yeah, exactly. And I think that those kind of post game or end game things are meant to be for an added challenge, kind of like the DLC was, right? Like that DLC didn't offer a lot in the way of
I
story.
I never played the
Neither,
DLC.
neither did I, and for that reason, right? I think it was mostly just kind of gameplay things, like
Yeah.
how effective can you be at the combat? Do you want to
Like,
explore the world in more detail or in
most
different ways?
I beat the game when I hadn't fought most of the mini bosses.
Hmm.
Like I didn't fight one of the rock guys until after I'd been in the game, and then I think I fought the hardest one because there's a fire one in a very small rock surrounded by lava, so it's probably the tightest fight out
I
of
didn't
them.
even I didn't even make a point of kind of going back and fighting those mini bosses. To me, like when the game was done, it was done. When I rolled credits, I don't think I went back to it. And I literally don't think I've ever gone back to the game, which is kind of crazy to think. Like, but my experience with the game was just so perfect.
Yeah,
Like I almost don't want to taint that in my memory. I want to just kind of leave it as it is. And like you, I had this aspiration of going back and playing it to some extent before Tears of the Kingdom to refresh my memory, just to spend a little bit of time in that world, not to finish the game again or anything.
yeah,
But I didn't end up doing that. I just kind of ran out of time, as we do with review games and everything else piling up and backlogs that seem endless. It just didn't happen. But I'm not overly disappointed about that. I think we're so close to Tears now, and you do see there is as much as the game is going to be an evolution, it's going to be different. It
mm,
is in a lot of ways the same world too. So
yeah.
not going having that clean break between the first game and the second game, I think is going to serve my next playthrough well. So I'm very very much looking forward to
I
it.
think I just need some help with the combat because I never fought a Hinox, I never fought a Lionel because I even avoided the ones that were in the castle because you can get around them. You know?
I mean, thank goodness for being able to cook as many
Yeah,
recipes and bring as much food with you as you could, just to to make it a war of attrition, I guess, against some of those tougher foes. That was me. Like I don't think the combat ever super clicked for me. I didn't really care.
mm,
Like I think it's such a wonderful world to explore. It's so at times dense, at times open, but I think that's its beauty is that you can kind of just walk around or float around or ride on the horse, and the fact that there's nothing is not a bad thing. Like it kind of punctuates the moments when you do find something cool. When you do find like a hidden village that you hadn't noticed before, or a shrine that's kind of just poking out of the side of a mountain or something like that. It's one of the most effective games at not having you see or do something every single second or every single minute.
mm.
There are minutes that can pass by in this game with nothing, and that's fine. Like I think it makes the game better actually.
I
Not like
think
something like Assassin's Creed, where
yeah,
some of the recent Assassin's Creeds, where it's such a huge map filled with tons of stuff to do. That's almost to its detriment because it's so overwhelming.
yeah. Like it's for me. I'll sort of randomly open the game here and there because there's sometimes I'm just not in the mood for like anything in particular. So something like Breath of the Wild or a rhythm game, I can just open and go find something I haven't found before. which is like why I've actually fought one of the Ignis Talus, I think the fire one,
Hmm.
and got like the male Garuda outfit and things like that. Were after I beat the game, but
You weren't someone who had to collect every single outfit so that you could
no,
deck out like
well,
every
you
wanted.
know, then I have to get all the correct thing. Armor doesn't have
Yes,
the
that's
thing,
right.
but yeah. Actually, I think that's one thing. I didn't even finish Tarrytown. No, I think I did. Maybe that might have been one of the side quests. It was
That
like
was
my
yeah,
house.
that was a fun one. That was a
My
fun ride.
house probably did Tarrytown. I think, uh, because that was interesting, and because of the amiibos, I had a bunch more of the like weapons and stuff, and I just had to like trying to pile them up in my house with the limited wall space.
Nice, yeah.
This is
I do
like
remember using the amiibos a little bit. I might have even had I'm trying to think if I have any of the Breath of the Wild dedicated ones. I'm not sure, but I do have a
they
couple of
made
Smash Bros.
so
Ones I could use.
many of those. There's like two different links: Zelda, the champions, the
Yeah,
guardian, and a bokoblin. They're like that's so many, and now it's like here's one amiibo, and now Xenoblade's getting three's getting two amiibos
of
like a
course.
year after it came out.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
It's really weird now.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not going to try to understand how Nintendo is rolling out amiibo anymore. That is just
no.
a mystery for sure.
Um,
You mentioned kind of coming back to the game periodically,
yeah,
and I think what's really amazing about Breath of the Wild is that it's really a game that's never fully left my like my sphere. I guess my social media sphere or something like
yeah.
that. Like
Have
I'm always seeing the game, right?
you seen like all those the stuff they do with combat now?
Yeah,
And it's not
just
necessarily glitches either. It's just
it's just these crazy tricks using all the
combos.
interesting physics of the game, right? Like,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. The chemical engine or whatever they said that was something before the game was like out, and I was watching the gameplay previews and videos of that. I was super interested in that.
yeah.
Like there was a video saying like silly or stupid things about Breath of the Wild, and it was like mostly that stuff. And I was like, oh, this is what has me excited about it. All the weird things you can do.
Yeah, it does feel very much like a sandbox or a playground, and people have
Mm,
kind of demonstrated that for since the game's launch, like just with regularity, the stuff people are discovering, ways of doing things that people hadn't thought of, just hilarious videos that just seem wild, and like I'm not interested in necessarily doing that stuff, but I love seeing it, and I think that the fact that this game has been part of in the discussions in the zeitgeist for 6 years is kind of crazy. Like we haven't really seen a lot of games like that. You think about something compared to something like Grand Theft Auto 5, which is still regularly topping sales charts. People are still buying that game, and but you don't see, at least I don't see as much talk about it
I
as I
think
do see Breath of the Wild.
they're too busy working to pay for their shark cards for GTA Online. Like,
That's right, or scamming people out of shark cards on
I
eBay or
mean,
something
I
like
think
that.
GTA 5 was good, but it just in terms of new stuff, it wasn't. It was just like, oh, this is sort of the next big GTA game. Not whereas like this
Yeah.
was with Zelda, the change. It was like this is the next step in open world games. This is a whole
Hmm.
new type of engine and things you can do with the like it really.
I mean, Grand Theft Auto just felt like more Grand Theft Auto, which wasn't
Yeah,
necessarily a bad thing. Like it's a bigger game. There's more to do, and I enjoyed my time with the story mode of five. I guess people are playing a lot of the online mode there, which is one of the things keeping it alive, right?
yeah.
Why don't we move on to some memories of the game? Just thinking back to times you mentioned kind of returning to the game on occasion, Paige, but thinking about maybe the main story or the kind of when you around launch when you've kind of first got the game and you're playing it through. Maybe this is a game that's kind of taking up most of your time with the Switch. I'm not sure if that's the case for you. Like I had this and I had the Shovel Knight Treasure Trove, and I was playing. I guess the new DLC was the Spectre Knight one, I think. So I was
Yeah.
alternating between playing that and playing this. I'd play Breath of the Wild usually at nighttime before bed for a couple hours. Um, Yeah, what kind of memories do you have of guys playing the game when it first came out?
Well, one thing was I think I got two Wii U copies of the game and one Switch copy
Nice.
because so it was like one for me, one for my sibling, which they don't have their Wii U copy anymore. And so we had that playing together sort of feeling, which was very
Hmm.
useful for one shrine is like the mountains ones where they you have to copy one shrine from one side to the other.
Oh yes, okay.
So instead of having to go to both shrines, I could just one of us had one shrine and the other one had the other. So it made that very easy. But
Hmm.
yeah, it was definitely things like that, like putting pins on each other's maps and telling each other to go check this out, and then they'd be like, "No, you put a skull pin there. I'm not going to go there." And that's where like the poison dragon was.
Hmm.
um, I guess, and amiibo wise, one of the things was the Twilight Princess Wolflink amiibo. If you popped it in, you'd have Wolflink follow you. And
Yes,
if
I
you'd
did have
played
that one.
Twilight Princess HD and done the Cave of Shadows and saved your data to the Wolflink amiibo, it would have more hearts.
Hmm.
So I actually made my husband play through all the Twilight Princess and do that so that my Wolflink could have more hearts when the game came out.
Right on.
And he did that for me. So
Good guy.
so
Like
I
so, you
can't
had to
say
marry him, right?
yeah. So I can't say he does nothing.
Yeah.
But and then it was funny because even with the extra hearts, we'll think went up to Death Mountain and a black moblin, just basically one tapped him. So,
Oh no.
but yeah, definitely just the sort of kind of smaller community sense of this brand new exciting thing and getting to play the single player game together.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that's really how it felt. Yeah, a single player experience that we were all having at the same time, and just because of the openness of the game, the fact that you can kind of go in every direction,
Mm,
play it as you see fit. It meant that everyone had different stories to tell, right? Like you might have found something that someone wouldn't find for weeks, and vice versa, right? If you
yeah,
whether you rushed the game or went to the divine beast or not, or just which area of the map, which direction you picked after the Great Plateau, really determined what kind of adventure you were going to have next, what you were going to find. And every region of the map, different terrain, different enemies to fight, different items to collect. Like however you wanted to go off, or whatever your kind of mo was for exploring the map, like that was going to dictate so much of your adventure. And I felt like a lot of my friends picked this up at launch. They grabbed a Switch at launch. And yeah, we were all playing it through, and it just felt like this awesome thing. Like every night or every few days, we kind of recollect like what had gone on. Like, have you found this yet? Have you seen this yet? And often the answer was no, right? That everything
yeah,
we were talking about was something fresh. And so it as much as it encouraged you to explore, it also, I guess, kind of felt like, you don't want to say too much because you do want to leave surprises up to people. And
mm,
obviously we're kind of talking about a game that's 6 years old, so there may be some spoilers in here for those who haven't played Breath of the Wild. So just fair warning. But I think I was one of the first in my group to find Eventide or Eventide Island,
yeah.
which is you access by I guess a little rowboat kind of thing. And when you get there, you're basically stripped of all your items and weapons, and you have to kind of fend for yourself. And it was just this really cool challenge that I remember that being one of the kind of things that when we found it is like, oh, have you seen this yet? And you didn't want to spoil it because it was really unique, but just a really wonderful challenge built into that game. It felt like it's almost its own little mini game within the larger scope of Breath of the Wild. But definitely a challenge, kind of almost a little reminiscent of like the beginning of a Zelda game, like before you have your sword, like the beginning of Link's Awakening. Before you find your sword, you got to go to the beach and
Mm.
maybe solve a puzzle or grab a shield and push things out of the way. Kind of reminded me just of the beginning of a Zelda game, that feeling of kind of being naked or being
An old
defenseless,
man in
and
a
how are you
hood
going to
talking to
survive?
you.
Sorry, Paige,
Yeah.
what'd you say?
The old man in the hood talking to you at the
That's right. Yeah, yeah,
mistletoe.
yeah. Dangerous to go alone. Well, now you have to go alone, so you
Mm.
figure it out, I guess. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was definitely one of my key memories of the game, was just going through that challenge, and no doubt having to take multiple attempts to finish it, but being very satisfied, and just finding it and then going through it was a very fun part of the game.
My favorite, I think, area of the game was I think it's on the eastern side with all the waterfalls. This like big river and like waterfall cliffy bits. I saw that and I was just like, oh, that's beautiful.
Hmm.
And I was just having fun exploring it and like, oh, here's all these new fruits and things.
I
And
think
then there
so.
was like a
I'm not
little
sure.
village at the end on a beach.
That's the yeah. So I was gonna bring up that village. I found that so late in my playthrough, probably 30 or 40 hours in. I couldn't believe that there's an entire village that I just managed to not see,
Well,
and
I think
I
that
guess that
one
just
doesn't really have anything in it aside from people.
no, but
Yeah,
just one of those kind of fun little discoveries, maybe a couple side quests or something like that. But
yeah.
again, it just makes the world feel alive when you find
Mm,
like a group of people here that you're like, how did I miss this? Like, how
mm,
did I not come to this area and just miss a whole village? It was, I guess, kind of just funny to me that the game holds so many secrets and so many little things
yeah.
that you can keep exploring, and until you see the whole map, like you really haven't seen everything.
And I think probably one of the more like magical things to see is the dragons when you see one of those for the first time.
Yeah, yeah, for
And
sure.
you're like, whoa, what is that? And I think maybe you're coming across the fairy fountains too, because
Yes,
you
yes,
try to
yes.
like catch the fairies before they disappear.
I think this
But
game does a good job of like, those kind of fantasy elements, like
yeah,
dragons flying in the sky, giant fairy fountain, giant fairies, in fountains that are kind of teasing you, mocking you, kind of having fun with you. Like, I think though those fantasy elements of Zelda are always a really enjoyable part to discover. Like, how is this game going to break away from reality? With its creature design, with its these fantastical elements that obviously couldn't exist in the real world. Like the way that Breath of the Wild kind of handled those was just really made the world. Yeah, you nailed it. Kind of feel a lot more magical.
mm,
So you have like the kind of the more realistic villages, that you
yeah.
explore, the desert towns and stuff like that. But then, yeah, you go off into the wilderness and you encounter creatures that are just so fantastical. Like it really felt, yeah, just yeah, it's just one of those Zelda things. That's what makes it feel like a Zelda game, I guess, is when you come across these beasts and things that you don't, you wouldn't obviously see in the real world.
Probably why I think part of why I didn't touch the DLC is the Master Cycle kind of annoyed me.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because there was a lot of things. So after before I came out, there was concepts of some of the younger people's idea. Well, the motorcycle was like Anonymous idea apparently, but
mm,
I feel I watched something on that. But the concepts like there was like a drawing of like Link in a beanie, and then there was ideas about like not there hasn't been aliens in this series, but like aliens shooting down in Hyrule, and
yeah.
I'm like, ew, like
Really glad that didn't make it into the game for sure.
I know people like Miyamoto get a lot of flack for not letting people have more creative input on things, and then I see some of these ideas, and I'm like,
Yeah, I'm like,
you
where did
know,
that even come from, right?
it was. I mean, not that depending on the sort of game, there's different, things, but generally, technology is typically ancient technology, if it,
Hmm.
magic technology, not which the motorcycle still was, but I just thought like, oh, it looked kind of I didn't like that.
It's the Monster Strike almost feels like it's something that belongs more in Tears of the Kingdom, right? With the
Oh
way that you
yeah,
can
there.
build things now,
Yeah,
build
that's
vehicles,
really.
and the comparisons that people have made to Banjo Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, right? Something like
Yeah.
that. Just feel like a bicycle would belong a little bit more in that world than Breath of the Wild's world, but yeah. I mean, obviously, like there's almost always a connection between the DLC for a game and then the sequel, right? And there's
Mm.
been that, you know, not one with very much merit, I don't think, with that debate about whether Tears of the Kingdom is just a DLC, in quotation
Um.
marks, or
Well, no, no.
thought of it like that.
I would. Well, they called the DLC for Breath of the Wild expansion pass, even though it's just DLC. But like
Yeah.
the concept of expansions used to be a thing where you'd have a whole separate disc that you needed the first game to play, and it could be an entirely new campaign,
Hmm.
maybe using a slightly different map, but yeah, it could potentially be that, but they've also added like what we've seen now. I think that's not really much of
Oh
it
yeah,
yet.
obviously. I think when we first saw the world and all you saw was like, oh, the same ground, and then they've added the sky as a new place to
Mm,
go. Like that could make it seem like DLC. But obviously they've added so many more mechanics. The last trailer, and we'll talk about the last trailer a little bit later. But I think those kind of calls for it just being a DLC or considered a DLC or something have obviously been kind of destroyed. I think with some of the latest marketing push there. Um, any other memories of Breath of the Wild you wanted to share? I think just that idea of it being a community type game that we were all playing together was such a
I
fun
think
thing.
learning how to deflect a guardian beam.
Ah, sure, that's a good
When I
one.
learned I could do that, I felt so much better because it was like I
Yeah.
couldn't get anywhere because these guardians would freak me out. Like the music would start and then like that's that's it. But when I realized I with some practice I can take them out pretty easily. And then I
It's
only had
pretty
to
intimidating when you've got that, the first time or the first couple times you've got that targeting laser on you, and
yeah.
you have a matter of seconds to either hide behind something or get out of the way, right? Like that. There's that one temple or I hesitate to say temple or dungeon or something like that, a cave, I guess, where there's a bunch of guardians, and so you can have like multiple targets on you all at once. I don't remember what part of the map this is in. I just remember the experience of it. But
I've seen videos of people doing the deflecting by like just having multiple shields and doing the shield swap on all
yeah,
of
oh,
them.
that's
So
hilarious. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, my only trouble now is if there's multiple guardians. But if it's just one, I'm like,
I like that a lot of the videos I have seen in the last year or so have just been like new ways of like absolutely wrecking guardians. Like
yeah,
it's just like they're
they're
not
just
even like
messing with
intimidating
them.
enemies at all. They're just gonna put to shame now.
Um, did you ever check out Master Mode when they added that?
I don't think I did. Is that kind of like just
The
a
hard,
extra difficulty
it was a
kind of mode?
hard mode where they like so the skin color, which is like because you get there's like a hidden experience point system. So then when the enemies respawn, there might be like the next skin color, so the next difficulty.
Right. Okay. I did
So
hear. I
they'd
remember
be
hearing
higher
about
of
that.
that, and there was bokoblins on floating rafts shooting at you on the Great
Hmm.
Plateau.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, honestly, the floating rafts is how you can tell that it's the master mode in Breath of the Wild because I don't think they did that in the regular mode at all.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, I know.
Um,
I mean, like we were talking about earlier, just because I wasn't super into the combat, I was never really looking for a way to make the game harder. Like it just wasn't the part of the game that I was wanting more. I was more combat or longer or more challenging combat. Just not something that I really care about. It's fine. Like I don't hate it or anything like that. Like weapon degradation, I don't mind that as much. Like it's fine.
yeah,
It forces you to use new weapons. I think that's not a bad idea. So.
I don't think I ever minded it other than if I got like a cool weapon and then I didn't
Hmm.
want to use it.
Yeah, yeah, fair.
Apparently, been watching lots of videos lately, and apparently there's technically some items you can miss because you can only get them from Lionel's a certain rank. So if you've got like the max XP thing and everything's basically gold, can't get that
Okay.
anymore, which is really
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
again, just one of
kind of
those like little
strange.
hidden things you wouldn't know
Yeah,
on a first playthrough without reading from somewhere, right? Trying to figure that out, obviously, it's very difficult. But
mm.
yeah, yeah. I love those aspects of it. The game has just continued to give content for 6 years. I think is amazing. I was gonna say something about a memory of the game, but now I've lost it. Oh, the Blood Moon. The first time the Blood Moon
Yeah,
happened, I was like, what is going on here? I thought my game was like glitching out or something like that.
yeah,
Um, just the way that the moon turns red, like this cutscene happens. I think where I guess all the monsters respawn or they get red eyes. I can't even remember exactly what happens, but just being like in awe of this event taking place. And I think I'd been purposely waiting for it for some kind of side quest to complete or maybe to find a shrine or something like that. So I guess I kind of knew about it, but still felt I guess I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like or what was going to take place when it happened. And so I was still pretty shocked and just kind of eyes wide open while I'm
yeah.
witnessing this event.
Well, it explains why no one else is really going out of their way to get rid of the monsters
Yeah,
as
that's right.
well, because
Exactly.
they just keep coming
They're
back.
going to
So why
come
would
back.
people
Yeah.
endanger their lives instead of just
Yeah.
avoiding them?
Did you
Oh,
ever get the Tingle outfit? That was a funny one, and I
not
think I wanted to
sure.
search that out at some point just because I thought it looked so funny
Not
online.
sure.
But
The main thing is that I had to avoid getting the Rex outfit because that was
oh
DLC.
yes,
So,
that's right.
and I was like, eh. Uh,
Well, the Rex outfit
the
fits so well
thighs
with the
out.
bicycle, right? Like, don't you have to pair those together? It just makes sense.
Actually, one of my favorite things is the bridge right near the Great Plateau, and if you stand on the edge, the guy tells you not to jump.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a really good one. Yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
one of my favorite little things.
Again, one of those like you if you didn't discover that by yourself, like it loses some of that
Yeah,
effectiveness, right? But when you first get it, you're like wow, like they have like a suicide kind of situation or a suicide
yeah,
kind of comment in the
yeah,
game. Like that's it's something you're not used to seeing. Like it never really see that in video games, let alone a Zelda game. Like such a kind of serious topic to be broached like that is just very surprising. But welcome for sure.
yeah. Aside from not caring too much for the divine beasts, so, well, sometimes like the setup to get on them was kind of cool, like getting onto the
Hmm.
elephant and things like that. But I just definitely, and the regular dungeons are a bit better. Um, my only kind of complaints are that there's no they we got a jump and now we don't have a roll,
Hmm. Right.
and like those giant hills beg for rolling, and fishing was done via like just getting in the water and catching them. There's no fishing
Yeah.
rod, um, and I don't think either of those things are going to be fixed in the sequels.
No, I don't know. I really, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff about Tears of the Kingdom that we haven't seen yet
Hmm.
that they're leaving to everybody's imagination. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do, address a lot of the complaints. Not that there were too many, but obviously people had issues with the game. And I trust the Zelda team to make a very very fun and enjoyable and expansive sequel to Breath of the Wild. Like, if anyone's going to do it, they will. Um, I was going to say so you mentioned the Divine Beast. Like, yeah, I think sometimes getting inside them or kind of activating or completing their quest was a more fun part than actually going through them, which is odd.
Well,
Like
I think
it's
part of
rare
that
in a Zelda game.
is
Sorry.
the story was pretty thin in this. A
Yes,
lot of
yes,
it was
definitely.
like, you got a little bit of character interaction and a couple of interesting side quests, but the getting to the divine beast was the most of an actual like following through the story and not just picking up flashbacks that we got. So
Yeah, and it let you get to know like the champions more, right? And I think they're pretty compelling. Like one, definitely wanted to see more of them, which is what and I guess you do get some of that in the DLC and a little bit in Hyrule Age of Calamity, the
yeah, I've
Hyrule Warriors game, right?
actually started playing Age of Calamity now instead of playing more Breath of the Wild.
Well, that counts. That counts. It's all it's all connected, I guess.
Yeah,
Um, and then you won't be going from like a Breath of the Wild gameplay style to Tears of the Kingdom, right? So that you have that Musu gameplay. You'll be itching to get into a Zelda game after that. I think
yeah.
a proper Zelda game. I say.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that the Divine Beasts were. I liked the fights with the different kind of elemental Ganons. I thought those were pretty compelling.
I did not like the fast one.
Yeah, that was was that Windblight or I don't remember
Yeah, one
which one's
one of
which,
them
but
that zips around. But
yeah, that was annoying. And yeah, I guess I found some of the puzzles inside the beast just not to be all that enjoyable. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully fully fledged dungeons, maybe better, slightly better puzzles than those. A lot of what made Breath of the Wild enjoyable was its world, not necessarily
yeah,
the divine beast, right? So yeah, I wanted to move on to talk a little bit about how we think Breath of the Wild might have impacted other games that came after it. I can think of one specifically that I want to talk about, but maybe also impacted our enjoyment of other open world games. Right? Maybe it don't have to be Nintendo, obviously, but just other thinking of other open world games we've played after Breath of the Wild and kind of being able to compare them. And then maybe a game or two that we think might have been impacted or influenced by uh, just the critical and commercial success of Breath of the Wild.
well, I don't really play open world games that much, so
Hmm.
a lot of which is why, um, sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I should play the one that's get criticized a lot of the Ubisoft ones and things like that.
Yeah.
But because I've never really played them, most of that stuff won't be as annoying to me because I haven't,
Hmm.
had 600 pop ups and all that stuff more than once. Yeah, so I think Breath of the Wild was not my first open world game, but no, kind of
And,
maybe. Like, you
and
know
I
what I
remember
mean?
they never
Because
even they went out of their way. Aonuma and the marketing team for Breath of the Wild went out of their way to not call it open world, right? They called it open air, which was a kind of a funny distinction. Just seemed like kind of a marketing
just like
thing. And
a search action genre.
yes, exactly. That's right. Just trying to avoid like the common vernacular and just kind of
Yep,
create their own term. And I wonder, if they're going to say the same thing about Tears of the Kingdom. Oh, it's still
yeah,
not open world; it's still open air or whatever.
definitely lots of air there. But
Definitely more open
I,
air than before, right?
yeah,
They've
but
doubled
I
down on the open air
definitely
nature.
used to play like lots of games where they're open area, so the
Yeah.
entire world's not like floating in on, but it you'd have these large areas with like the freedom to do explore and do all sorts of things in them, which I
Hmm.
love to do with Simpsons Hit and Run, especially.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a good one.
uh, but yeah, to me, I guess it wasn't as much of a breath of fresh air because I didn't really play the games sort of like the GTA's or the Assassin's Creed and stuff.
And it did it make you want to play more of them? Like, how did you feel afterwards about like this type of game? Was it like I'm sure obviously you enjoyed this one, but it
Mm,
didn't like push you to go and seek out more experiences like this?
not really. I think
Mm,
it left me satisfied enough, and
yeah.
part of what I love about this game is the stuff that's unique to it, like the certain attitude it has with all the silly things like it rudely not letting you take a bear or undead or fancy creatures to the stable.
Yeah. That's right.
um,
Good one. Yeah, good point.
and like the other engine system. Well, there is a game that out of the games that took off Breath of the Wild, there's definitely one that used the elemental chemical system a bit. So,
Hmm.
so I think there's only one really, and that's one of the blatant has taken inspiration games.
This is, I mean, you're bringing up examples of like this charm that we and kind of whimsy that we really mostly see in Nintendo developed and produced games, right? Like this isn't you don't see the same type of open world interactions and humor and lightheartedness in in Assassin's Creed and in Elden Ring, like
No, the
which
only
is the
thing
game
I
I'm
can
talking about.
I can think of in GTA 5 is the one where you think you're a bunch of animals in
Yeah,
some
sure.
trip quest. you know, um, well, I guess that I was gonna say GTA does have some slightly more variance in the sort of things you do because it's the city based kind of mission based thing.
Mhm, and it's got the 3
Whereas,
different protagonists too, right? Which
yeah,
would, like,
that
help
too.
with that, right? So, there's no to contrast them, you have to almost have
But
some absurdity, right?
um,
Some humor like that.
Zelda doesn't really have much. You've got the shrines and the divine beasts, basically, but there's not really like other missions to do. Quite.
No, I mean, the side quests of, like, go bring like, the fetch quest kinda style ones, like, I
Yeah,
mostly ignored those, right? Because by the time, like, I was gonna do them, like, I already had all the equipment and rupees that I needed. There was no real benefit other than just, like, seeing their reaction to solving the quest. Obviously,
that's
some of
it.
them, like rebuilding Terrytown, like, that is a more enjoyable endeavor, even if the way you're building the town, kind of collecting resources and stuff, like that's not super fun, but seeing the town kind of sprout up before your eyes is a very nice reward, I think.
I say not open world, but because it's all pretty closed off to make story progress. But I guess the only thing that's quite different to it that I liked was East 8, where you had this whole
Yeah.
island because it had the going through the story and fighting through the bosses and things like that. But you also had these different mission things to go to because you had to protect the home base and you had to
Yes,
do
right,
these
right.
these raids, which was very funny when it said we need to be stealthy, and the music that started playing was not that at all.
Yeah. No, not at all. No.
So, um, but I think that is something that'll be sort of fixed in Tears of the Kingdom. From what we've seen, it looks like there'll be more than just exploration to do. Like there might be that kind of helping out the community, try and rebuild a bit.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to see more of that. And that was one aspect of Ease 8 I really did enjoy. I
Yeah,
believe Ease 8 came out in Japan before Breath of the Wild, so they wouldn't have, it
yeah,
certainly wouldn't have been
no,
impacted by it, but it is kind of fun to
it's
see them side by side.
yeah, it's what I played afterwards, and there's
Hmm.
a couple games like East 8 and Telluride 2, I really liked just the community story, like the
Yeah.
feeling like the people are working together and how everything was quite connected. But in terms of games that were definitely inspired by Breath of the Wild, the only one I sort of touched a little bit of Immortals Phoenix Rising,
Hmm.
but didn't really play it. But Genshin Impact is probably the only one I've really actually played because they've done the chemical reaction sort of not like the same way, but they've got if you get wet, then you're more susceptible to being frozen like instantly and things like
Hmm.
that.
Okay.
They've got their own sort of elemental system that's taken inspiration on top of having all the climbing and exploring around, and I um enemies that looked kind of similar to McCollum's, and like it's not
Yeah, that's right.
it's it's a bit less subtle than some of the other ones, but it's I got a bit like stuck because of the way the progression works in that game, but it was definitely really fun, and I did similar things like that where in Genshin Impact, I went to the next city in a way I wasn't really supposed to because I didn't have anything for the ice, and you start freezing to death. But then a little fire spirit like was near me, and being close to him stopped me from dying,
Hmm.
and that got
Cool.
me all the way around the edge of the mountains like that you're allowed to go to long enough that I could get to the not frozen area and not die. So
Nice.
that and there's a couple areas in the VOA that looked really cool. So they did replicate some of the feeling of that despite having a big gacha system, and that you can get away with doing some silly exploration and stuff like that that you're not
Hmm.
meant to.
Yeah, Genshin. Because I haven't played it, I didn't even think about that. But I think that is a good game, one that you can kind of make that comparison and think about how it was impacted by Breath of the Wild. You mentioned Immortals: Phoenix Rise, and I think that's an obvious one
Yeah,
because it really tries try to do a lot of the same things, like the way map opens up. I think some of the abilities that you have are reminiscent of ones you get from the Sheikah Slate. Like that seemed a very obvious attempt at. And that game was kind of delayed and maybe even rebooted at some point. I don't remember the development history of it, but I don't think it was a particularly smooth one. And it seems like, yeah, I remember this kind of being part of the discussion critically about the game, is it's just kind of like a poor man's Breath of the Wild. And I know people have enjoyed this game, and I think there's some fun to be had there, but I could not get into it after playing Breath of the Wild. It just felt
yeah.
like it's too similar, and it's doing Breath of the Wild in a way that is
We
not
have
as
Breath of the Wild
enjoyable.
at home.
Yeah, it's
Well,
exactly.
if you don't have a Nintendo system, you've got something.
Yeah, exactly. You've got that's what you can play. Well, I mean, you do have things like Horizon, Horizon on PlayStation, and I don't know what the similar one would be on Xbox. I guess you would be stuck with Phoenix Rising, but yeah, Immortals just it struck me as a game that was trying too much to be Breath of the Wild, but didn't have like the heart, didn't have like the polish needed to kind of rise to that level. And it would be a game you play before Breath of the Wild, and be like, oh, this is pretty fun, but playing it afterwards, it's like, oh, this just kind of pales in comparison. Like I'm not really enjoying myself here. I'd rather just go back and play Breath of the Wild. I think I played like maybe 3 to 5 hours of Immortals before I gave up on it, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm just not having as much fun with this game. um
Not even being able to wear a silly mustache helped you.
no,
No,
not enough.
no.
I'm thinking like, oh, I feel like I'm playing a Pit like character, but it's not a Kid Icarus game. It's just
Yeah.
a Breath of the Wild ripoff.
Now,
But
do we need a Kid Icarus game that's partly
yes,
Breath of the Wild?
yeah, exactly. I think the next Kid Icarus game we're gonna get, and maybe the fact that I won't say that spoiler, but there's been rumors about Kid Icarus Uprising getting ported to Switch. I'd love to see something like that because I never
Yeah,
got a chance to play that game.
I literally waited like for the last direct to be like, just in case, and then it didn't. I was like, all right, I'm gonna buy it now before it gets too too expensive.
Yeah,
I
that's
was like,
right. Well,
but
now that it's another game trapped on the 3DS, right? Especially it was trapped before, but now that the eShop is down, like you have to get a physical copy. So I imagine those are harder to come by now. I mentioned Elden Ring just briefly a few minutes ago, and I think that's a game that does feel inspired by Breath of the Wild to an extent, for the better. I think that
although
it has learned from what made Breath of the Wild excellent. And again,
Yeah,
I don't know exactly when that started
without
development.
blatantly ripping it off like the other two games.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's not as obvious, right? Because it does a wonderful job of maintaining like the Soulsborne feel and formula, but then taking it to the open world and kind of again an open world that it straddles that line between having a lot to do, but also having moments of nothing to do. And I think that that's the best way that it may have borrowed from or been impacted by Breath of the Wild. It knows that you don't have to have a thing around every single corner. You don't have to have a treasure or something to find every few seconds. Like it's okay to just be riding around on your horse in Elden Ring. It's still enjoyable. It's such a gorgeous game that
And
you can just enjoy the scenery while you're doing that.
you can probably compare the a lot of the story happened in the past and not as well.
Yeah, I guess. God, I didn't even think about that. That's true.
Yeah,
Um, there, yeah, I think there are other games that maybe have taken lessons as well. But I did want to kind of just think about open world ones, and I feel like Immortals may have learned like the wrong lessons, or just doesn't have the same kind of Nintendo level of polish to it. But I think Elden Ring is one that Elden Ring was a great game, but I feel like it stands on the shoulders of Breath of the Wild as well. Um,
I hope that Tears of the Kingdom does not have anything like Caelid though.
oh, please, nothing like
Oh,
nothing.
what's in this chest? Oh.
I yeah, exactly. I think Elden Ring, just one other analogy, I suppose, is the way that the kind of beginning area does kind of a similar thing to the Great Plateau, right? It has that way of kind of telling you, okay, are you ready for this area? Should you move on? Whereas the Great Plateau was kind of it was a gate you had to get through. You had to get through it.
Yeah.
In Elden Ring, like you can kind of explore around this area that's relatively safe. You can try the castle kind of on the left side or the west side of the
Well,
map if you want
I
to, but even if you
remember
don't beat it, you can still go somewhere else.
people saying a lot of them skipped the tutorial because they didn't trust the
Yeah,
person who
right.
was offering the tutorial.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
We're learning to not trust what the games are telling us or throwing at us necessarily. We're just going to figure it
Well,
out on our
that's the
own.
thing with the message system. It's like I think the time my husband fell for the Chester Kayla trap because there was warning. There's warning ones,
Yeah,
but
I guess
then
that what's funny is that
yeah.
you have in Elden Ring you have this system of interaction between players, right? And it's subtle, but it does impact your experience in meaningful ways,
Imagine
right?
if Breath of the Wild had bloodstains, that'd be so funny.
I can I
They would,
guarantee you, Nintendo's online infrastructure would not be able to hold up. It would find some way to crash the game if they tried to implement something like that. I think
it would be really funny to see.
it would be funny. It would be funny for sure. Um, so the last thing I want to talk about is Tears of the Kingdom. So obviously, a discussion of Breath of the Wild, like we can think about this next game that's coming so soon.
Mm,
So Paige, I imagine you've seen that last trailer, the 3 to
yes.
5 minute one that just came out. How are you feeling about Tears of the Kingdom now? Since what it seems like we're not going to see anything else about this game until launch.
Good. I wasn't one of the people that felt super like unconfident about it, even when we didn't have much extra shown. But I definitely feel a lot better now that I'm getting like all these pieces that you can see like there's some people that come out with really weird ideas.
Oh, of course, yeah,
There's one where like, you're doing stuff with NPCs and like, oh, maybe multiplayer, and it's like, if they had multiplayer, they would have shown that on their last trailer.
100%. Yes, they
They
would
would,
have.
they would have told you the month before, and that would have run terribly anyway.
Nintendo also
But,
haven't had a lot of luck with multiplayer Zelda, right?
no,
Like they had Four Swords and it was fine.
Triforce Hero.
Triforce Heroes was not fine
But
at
I
all.
mean,
So
I can get people wanting it because when I'm playing Breath of the Wild, I was like, oh man, imagine being able to do this with another person and you could
yeah,
do
yeah,
even more wacky stuff because you could, like, one person could stand on the log. I don't know if you could stasis someone,
for
but
sure.
it's definitely not that. I guess the only thing that has me sort of not as interested is like the vehicle system. I don't know if I'm going to care for doing that very much.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
we're in agreement again. Like some of the crafting, the
the
building your own
fusion
vehicles, whatever.
The fusion stuff I don't mind, but
Hmm,
the ultra hand, the creating like a vehicle and stuff, I'm like,
yeah.
I want give me a Loftwing. What did I buy the expensive amiibo for?
Yeah, exactly.
And
Give me an amiibo that
actually,
generates the vehicle I need at this moment, so I
so
don't have to decide it.
so far all they've said about amiibo is getting paraglider designs, and it's like, well, we're
Hmm.
not getting like, don't tell me we're not getting Wolflink in this one, you know, stuff like. And that's I'm also interested. Is there like any kind of save data? Like, are my
Yeah.
horses going to be saved at the stable? Are my horses still there? Am I am I going to lose everything? And it's my house. Where's my house?
That's the tears of the kingdom, Paige. The tears you cry when your horses are gone, when your house is
my
gone. I'm sorry.
my
Sorry to
horses
break
and
it to you here.
yeah, like that's the bit where because games I think especially like the kind of 360 era when they had
Hmm.
sequels did tend to have like that save data keeping your decisions and things you did. So I don't know if they'll do that for this. That's one of my worries.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I think that's a fair one to have, and I think that again we haven't. There's a lot to this game they haven't shown. When they showed that game, the extended gameplay demo with Aonuma, I know a lot of people were excited about that. I think in particular, if you like crafting and you like building vehicles and just that freedom, that flexibility that you have to kind of experiment, I guess.
yeah,
I'm not super into that, so it did take the latest trailer where we got more story stuff, more about what you're going to see and do in the world, more of the locations and people you're going to meet. It took that last trailer to really kind of get me excited, really, really excited for the game.
mm,
I obviously I was going to play it, I was going to buy it, I was looking forward to it, but I wasn't sold yet on it being as kind of like, um, I guess, momentous as Breath of the Wild. But now I do feel like the game can, live up to the original one. I think that I think a 95 plus Metacritic is definitely possible. But yeah, just seeing the potential for perhaps real dungeons in this game.
yeah.
Um, the fact that it does seem darker, like it's doing the Majora's Mask thing of potentially being a darker game, a darker
I
story. I
think
like
that's
that.
what a lot of people wanted to.
Yes, yes, for sure. Yeah, that the writing. As soon as we saw the Tears of the Kingdom was going to be a thing, like the comparisons with Majora's Mask
Yeah,
felt like they weren't just going to be wishes or predictions. They felt like that was going to come true. Like this was going to be the closest thing we've had to that pair of games was going to be this.
but
And
yes, I think one of the more exciting things in the trailer was the seeing NPCs being fighting beside you, doing some kind of defense mission, things like that. So that has me pretty excited because, like I was talking about East 8, and I like doing those sort of things. So
yeah, me too.
the
Me too.
different types of things to do.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be just like your Age of Calamity experience, right? Fighting alongside your companions like that, right? So,
Yeah,
um, yeah, I'm just excited. I think that the latest trailer felt like a good tease of all the hidden stuff to find. It kind of just kind of quickly flashed through a lot of different scenes. Like there's one where you're kind of on a mine cart and you're
yeah,
fighting
that
an
looks
enemy on the other side.
fun.
That looked
Yeah,
awesome. That looked really
yeah,
fun. Yeah. And it's scenes like that that made me feel like, okay, if there's mine carts and stuff like that, like that's clearly like underground. That's in a temple or dungeon like that. That's
yeah.
somewhere outside of like just the main world or the sky world. Like that's maybe it's underground or something like that. So the more
Yeah, with
dimension to the game, maybe.
the dungeons might be able to look a bit more natural dungeon, like
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
part of the world. Whereas like in the other games, they're obviously quite. I don't know. They look very much like a game designed thing.
Hmm.
Whereas like
Yeah, yeah.
if
If
one
it's
of
just kind
those
of a natural part of the world, like that has become a dungeon, that's really neat, as opposed to just a structure created to be a dungeon.
yeah. Um, but I'm definitely quite excited for it, and
Hmm.
I said there's some of the things I want probably not going to be in there, but the what's the other thing I was thinking? I can't remember, but that
I
I
like
don't
I
know. I like
oh.
that there won't be any guardians, probably.
Yeah, it seems
But
like they've moved on from some of those kind of major parts of the first game. They're just not going to show up. I think
um,
shrines might not even show up, and so I'm very curious how
yeah,
if they don't, how is progression going to work? Like, how is your stamina and heart meter going to go up? Like, you just going to have to find heart containers in the world. I would love that because I actually really I love heart containers as a device for rewarding exploration and side quests. Like, I think that that is a very compelling reason to do side quests is to get heart containers. I've
Yeah.
always loved that about Zelda games.
And I don't like that the Lionels appear to have like deer and reindeer antlers now, which implies that they may be stronger.
Yeah, we definitely don't want them to be any stronger. But I guess
Yeah.
the for those who
Oh,
you can build a stronger weapon now, Paige, or build a longer weapon so you can
yeah, a
stay far away
very
from them,
long
right?
weapon.
The spear
Um,
on top of the spear kind of thing.
I like the bokoblin forts on the taluses and stuff.
Hmm. Yeah,
That
yeah,
looks
those look funny.
so fun.
Yeah, I think that this is a game that it looks like it's going to live up to the hype, which is it has amazing or just super high expectations to live up to. Obviously, considering the first game, but I think it has a real shot of getting there. Um, any kind of final thoughts about Tears of the Kingdom or even Breath of the Wild before we maybe wrap up here?
Um, yeah, I think Breath of the Wild was a good game. Like I said, I'm not the kind of person to like fully go into it. Maybe if I have time, I think I'm playing just Age of Calamity now instead. But if I have time, I might go back to it to try and learn some of the combat a bit better. Because, like I said, there was heaps of mini bosses and stuff I didn't touch, and this game obviously is probably going to be a little bit more difficult. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think the latest trailer has definitely, made most people more excited, even if there are
Yeah.
still things we want to know about. But we'll
I
find
mean,
out.
I got emotional watching that last trailer, and a couple weeks ago I watched the final Breath of the Wild trailer, and I was
Yeah.
pretty close to tears. Like it was just, these are incredibly well edited and created, produced trailers. Like they really know how to get you, excited and emotionally invested in just a few minutes
Mm.
of a video game. Um, but they're just so good at crafting like this these promises of what you're going to get from this game, right? And it's just a perfect advertisement for Breath of the Wild. That final trailer was, and I think this one is going to have that similar effect on Tears of the Kingdom. Just this wonderful encapsulation of what you can expect from this game and why you should be excited about it. They do a really good job of not showing off too much. I think the marketing for this game, especially, there were so many trailers and presentations for Breath of the Wild, given all the delays and the fact that it released on two consoles. But this
Mm.
one, they've
Oh,
kept their cards close to the vest here, and so that's
uh,
going to be a really good thing for this, I think.
this, I guess, like, what was it? Twilight Princess was the only other one that had like the two console release, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
only other Zelda game, anyways. Yeah.
Actually, no. You know what's disappointing is that since Skyward Sword, Link has not been left-handed anymore. Not that I'm a left-handed person, but the Skyward Sword had the motion control excuse,
Yes.
but Breath of the Wild doesn't like. They've just
I suppose I need to. I think my youngest, who's 3, is left-handed, so I need to stand up for the lefties as well. So yeah,
yeah.
I'll vote for Link going back to being left-handed, please. I think
It's just like one distinct thing that he's got, and they're like,
that's right. That's right.
that's just completely changed. I was like, why? Um, I got one. Not that I think you. I don't know if you're much into Splatoon at all, but
I mean, I bought the third game at launch and I
yeah.
played a ton of it, and I just
Okay.
haven't played
Well,
since. But I do like the
um,
game for sure.
the next Splatfest is the start of May, and it's going to
That's
be
right.
Zelda
Yes.
themed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's asking like what Triforce thing do you want? You're like, what do you seek? Power, wisdom, or courage? So, what is your answer to that question?
It's yeah. I don't know if this has always been the answer, but I would choose wisdom over the other two. I guess for me that's always been the kind of goal or the pursuit,
Yeah.
doing extended post-secondary time, doing a master's degree, being a teacher. It kind of
Being a
makes sense
nerd.
that I would espouse wisdom and want that to be my chosen triforce. So I would go team wisdom. I'll try to jump in for this Splatfest. I might, but now that I've got 6 Final Fantasies on my plate, I'm not sure if I'm going to get there, but we'll see. How
I
about
did
you,
think it was
Paige?
interesting they did I guess the sort of Ocarina or Twilight, yeah, Twilight Princess sort of silhouettes for their
Yeah.
shirts and stuff. Like they're still attached to that, even though Smash Bros has moved on. I
Splatoon's a
am,
generation or two behind, I guess, right? Something
yeah,
like that, maybe.
I do like that they're doing a Triforce shape map for it though,
Yeah, yeah.
because that's what Splatoon 3 was like. No, like they got rid of the exclusive Splatfest stages, which was really irritating.
Mm-hmm.
For me, yeah, I think it's well, I was like kind of possibly want to be Team Zelda because of Zelda and Fry. I think that's going to be her thing.
Yeah.
But like the actual answer would be power.
Yeah.
You know,
Nice.
I want to be able to do things.
That's fair. That's
Have
fair.
some authority.
I don't think I definitely the South Park reference is a good one. I just literally just listening to an episode of Retronauts where they talk about South Park games, and I hadn't heard that line for a long time until you said it, Jew. I think power is a good one. I think courage the one that I'm trying to think. This is a silly reference. Think back to the original Zelda cartoon that played as part of the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. You're too young to
Yeah,
have
no.
watched this, obviously, but you might know of it. But on Fridays they would show Zelda, and I guess they'd show a Zelda cartoon. And Ganon, I guess, had the Triforce of Power, and I think Zelda might have had the Triforce of Courage, and they were always trying to get the Triforce of Wisdom. I may be completely misremembering that, but whenever
Zelda's
I think about the
wisdom.
Triforce's
Yeah,
pieces, I always think about that show for some reason.
yeah. And Zelda's the wisdom one, and like Link's the
Okay,
courage because he's the one, the
gotcha.
hero. That
That
I
makes
mean,
sense. That
I
makes
feel
sense.
like technically I need all three, but if what do I pick in between one? I definitely want power in my
Yeah,
life. Although courage
I
maybe because I had like a trip, I went away, and several times to be like, oh, I should say something about like go in the wrong direction or
yeah,
like, are
right.
you sure about that?
You didn't
And
have the
then it
Triforce
was
of Courage on you,
yeah,
right?
it
That's
was
what stopped you.
literally like 2 seconds too late.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I certainly have more of that now as I've gotten older, and it's just because
mm,
I don't really care. I don't care as much about what people think necessarily, and I think that's just a hallmark of getting older is you care less about what
but,
people think. But at any
although
rate,
yeah,
you mentioned maybe going back to Breath of the Wild. I do want to say one more thing about that before we wrap up here is that
yeah.
I think I will play that game again when my son is old enough. Like I've
Oh
shown
yeah.
him trailers. He's seen Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, he's excited about it to an extent, but it's not really a game for him. He's too young for it. But when he is old enough, I will definitely start him with Breath of the Wild as potentially his first Zelda game and just say, like, okay, I want you to explore this world, do what you want. I'll obviously help you, but I just want him to have that experience that I had to some
Mm,
extent when he can read and all that stuff and understand those more mature games.
yeah.
I definitely want to get him to that into that. And I guess that'll be my kind of return to the game. I think is with him, so that'll be fun. Um, Paige, just before we go, this was a fun episode talking about Breath of the Wild, getting us maybe even more excited for Tears of the Kingdom coming out soon.
Mm.
Is there anything you want to plug? Anything you've been working on recently?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I had a lot of just really not playing anything and just not being
Yeah.
in quite the mood for it. And then I had
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
things I'm like, oh, I can make a video of this, but then it's like I have to play at my desk instead of on the couch.
Yeah.
I'm trying to use
Sometimes
screen
you
to
just want to
record.
be comfortable when you're playing your games, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I definitely get into those moods sometimes where I'm not really into starting something new. I don't want to go back to something old, and I just
yeah.
like
Like I
kind
had
of
some things that got interrupted, and now it's like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Sometimes you're just in a mood for like a good book or a new movie or a TV show that you get into,
But
and you want to end up binging it, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and this month's pretty empty except for Advance Wars. Like I went to like the city on the weekend, and the import store didn't even have a game I wanted
Oh,
because
okay. Yeah.
Grim Grimoire was like digital only here, so I thought
Ah, yeah.
they don't
No
even have it
physical.
just because obviously the exchange rates impact whether or not they can import things and sell them for
Of course.
a good price. So they're like, oh, this game's like $130 if we bought it now. I'm like, oh,
Oh my gosh, that is
yeah,
that's exorbitant.
and but it's not so bad that it's pretty empty because the next May's Tears of the Kingdom, June's like June is Final Fantasy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Final
Yeah,
Fantasy 16 near the end of the month. I think the 22nd ish or so, and then if you
yeah,
got Diablo 4 is the
mm,
first week of June.
yeah. There's a lot and like a bunch of little games that are gonna fall in the cracks of not having much of a games budget now.
Yeah, well, you've also got the E3 not to be season
Not
in
easy.
June, so there will obviously be some announcements around then, and
I know.
um,
Actually, that's one thing I don't like about say the indie world was not that long ago, and
mhm.
they always have the random launch drop, and I was like, dang, I don't have the
Like
budget.
you mean today's indie world?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
well, I actually already bought Shadows of Overloathing on launch.
I knew you were going to say that. I was like, that was my
Yeah,
next question. Was if you
yeah.
got it yet?
No, I bought it on Steam when it came out and haven't really
Oh,
played it. I
okay.
was like, I should have just waited. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Inevitably, it was gonna given that the West of Loathing
it's
came to
kind
Switch.
it's kind of faster than I thought. It's probably less than 6 months that it took to
Yeah.
get a Switch port. So, you know,
I mean, at this point, you got to feel like as soon as a Steam game comes out, you're prioritizing a Switch port over anything else, right? So,
because we're not Steam Deck fanatics unlike someone. So,
yeah, no, Steam Deck and Square Enix is his two passions now.
yeah.
Yeah, David, of course, we're speaking of. Yeah, but I think this we'll wrap it up here. I did want to plug a couple of things that I've got just put out today. Actually, I've got a review of Coffee Talk episode 2, Hibiscus and Butterfly, a visual novel follow up to a Coffee Talk game. It's kind of a visual novel barista kind of simulator type game. Enjoyed it. So check out that review on NintendoWorldReport.com.
Is that worth playing if you don't like coffee?
Yeah, because you can make tea or hot chocolate. So there are you have
Everyone gets hot
options.
chocolate and well.
Yeah, you definitely you have options even if you don't like coffee. You're good. There's only one coffee option. There's a bunch of tea,
Oh, that's
4 or
weird.
5 tea options. Yeah, that you can get. You
Yeah,
make
I think
matcha. You
I
can
was
make regular
getting it
tea.
mixed up with like this different one that's coffee based that was Australian made. I'm like, obviously it can't be that one because
No, this is
Australia has a lot more of a serious coffee scene.
yeah. No,
It'd
this
be
is
more than
from.
one coffee option.
I think the developers are from Indonesia, Toge Productions.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I like their stuff, and I like. This was a good game too, so check that out. And then I shared. We got the codes late, so I'd have a full review, but I did share. I did make a video sharing some impressions of Final Fantasy VI Pixel Remaster, which those games came out today. So I've got all of them. I'm reviewing 6 and 3 in particular for NWR. So you can check out on our YouTube channel my impressions video where I go over some of the quality of life features. You can see how the game looks, which I think is actually some of the spell attack effects are quite nice actually. So I'm into it. I'm going to try to finish 6 as soon as I can, get into 3, and you'll check out those, be able to see those full reviews on NWR soon. But check out the impressions video and the Coffee Talk. That's a video as well on our YouTube channel, NWR TV. If you haven't already, Thirsty Mage is on Spotify. You can check us out there. Leave us a review. I don't know if it's review or rating or comment or what it is, but we'd love any kind of feedback there. Tell your friends about the show. Want to keep growing in 2023. We're trying to do more episodes focused on singular games. If you like that kind of style or that kind of approach that we're taking now, let us know. You can always email David, David at thethirstymage.com. But that'll do us for tonight. So thanks to Paige for joining me for this talk on Breath of the Wild. Hopefully everyone is looking forward to Tears of the Kingdom. We will do an episode on that as well. I think we will cut David out of the picture once again because he's decided to only play Square Enix games, and unfortunately Zelda does not belong to Square Enix. But I think Paige and I will probably do an episode on
Do
Tears.
you know if Casey's interested in it?
I don't know. I think I can, without any knowledge, I can say he's probably more interested than David. So I would guess that Casey might join us for that one. But
Maybe a Triforce then.
yes, there it is. We'll each bring our own Triforce to the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks again, everybody, for listening. Hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you again next week. Bye for now.
Bye.